nice for me to get the chance to talk to so many faces all at once, because talking is my most favorite thing to do. I do a lot of it. As it was mentioned, I'm part of the community support team, and you'll be hearing from others on that team today as well. And my job is to support communication for people. Some of you will know this stuff already, so it'll just be a review for you. Others, it might be new, and hopefully this will just be a starting point for you to know how to access services and what that service might look like for the individual that you might be caring for. Okay, you have a package in your handout, and in that package, mostly everything and a little more than what I'm presenting here is in that package. Does this sound right to you? Does it sound okay?
Did everybody hear her?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. It seems like there's an echo to me, yeah.
I'm trying to fix that now.
Okay, thank you. So we only have 1 hour, and this is a huge area of knowledge base, so diverse for what we present for people, because each person is such an individual. So I just want to get started, and you will have things in your packages that we may only have to skim through, but you'll have reading there to do some self-learning later. Okay, so what is, let's see, who is served? You've got this handout in your package. And so very quickly I'm going to go through this. The service is available to all people who are 19 years and older, who are supported by CLBC. And the actual service is free to those individuals, so you don't need to worry about that you actually have to pay for the service. We do consultation and support for people who have little or no speech. Some people actually have a lot of speech, but they're very communication disordered, as in some people with Asperger's or autism, so we also see those people too. And I tend to say we because we used to be a team of more than me, and now I still talk about me as we, so there's just me. So I do get right, so it's a bit confusing. So I see people, I don't tend to go I all the time, so anyway, we provide the assessment for the individual and any follow-up with caregivers that is needed, any training, on-site in-services and workshops are given right on-site, because we know that it's very hard for people to come out like today to a whole day presentation on different skills that you might need. So I take those packages to people and involve the individual who's receiving the service as well as much as possible. So you just need to request the service as long as you're supported in some way through CLBC, and then you can access the service. Clients themselves can ask for the service too. Okay, we do have a library. I have a library, okay, and in there's lots of different things you could read or videos to watch on different aspects of augmentative communication. You just need to phone up to make an appointment to see what we have, or you can ask me for something, and if I have it, I'll deliver it for you. So what is augmentative communication? It's all communication that supplements or augments speech. And we all do this, and we all do it with facial expressions and body language, and we're emailing and texting and all those kinds of things. That's all communication. But special augmentative communication components include symbols and aids, techniques and strategies that have been specially developed or refined for use by individuals with severe communication disorders. So it might look something like this, and you've got this in your handout too. It's about speech, and it's divided into augmented communication, standard and special. So you can see that you would have the things that we just talked about. We all use standard things like computers and typewriters. And then unaided would be sign language. And then for special displays, you may have some things. I brought some things along, and the nutrition breaks follows after this presentation. So if people want to have a quick look at this stuff, that would be just great. They're just examples of what things might look like. It's not really anybody's stuff because you can't take it off them. You know, I don't give it to them and then take it away. Okay. And people often wonder how that service will look like. So people are seen where they work and live. We don't have them come to the office, and there is one or two people who like to do that. And they'll come and they'll see what pictures they might want to update their boards on the computer and stuff like that. But mainly I go and see people where they are, because that's where their life is, and then you can really get a better feel for what's needed for them to fit into that environment to make the best of it. So family and friends and caregivers and any other support people are included when assessing what will be needed for that individual. So it's quite comprehensive. But quite often people within the circle have a lot of the answers already. It's like putting it together and starting off at the best place and then trying to build on that. We try and find the most appropriate method, and we establish that, what works best for the person. And then the communication user and their support network will be supported on how best to use it. So a lot of training is in there. Ongoing support is provided as needed. So in an environment where there's a lot of skilled people, they might just need me to come in once in a while, and for other people it's like really intense at the beginning, and then it kind of tapers off as people get the skills that they require to support the individual. And a very important, communication strategies are multimodal, so we just don't rely on one way of communication. We have our main way of doing things, the one that works best, but we use many other things because, for instance, if you have a communication device, you can't take it into the pool with you, so you want to have some other things that you can use, and always have a non-technical system as well as a technical system. And we all use more than one way to express ourselves, so it's a normal model to follow. Review of what is and what isn't working is an ongoing process. And of course, people's plans and IPPs and whatever that they have in place, this service can also tie right in with that. And what are the goals? So the goals are to develop expressive communication, to further develop receptive language skills, to empower through communication, and to provide choice and control. It sounds very easy just to say all of that, and it's what I think we all do, is try to provide choice and control to people and make them feel empowered. But saying it and doing it can be quite challenging. But when you have communication tools that you're working to support the individual with, sometimes that actually helps us to remember to do that part more often. Okay. Some of the things that the functional tools that we might use would be core vocabularies, which might look, it might be in a little book, something like this, or it might be in a big folder. It might be with objects, or it might be with tactile color. Other people are able to eye gaze, to letter boards, or to finger point. Some people can spell and some people can't. So there's a huge range of people that are served, and you should know that nobody is too disabled to benefit from augmentative communication. You cannot not communicate at some level. So I know that I see people who are deaf, blind, and may just have the use of part of their body, and other people who can spell on a board, So a full range of people can improve their communication skills. That seems a bit fuzzy. Okay. So we would have the core vocabulary and then choice boards. Choice boards are very, very helpful for people. Also for yourselves, it's a way to sometimes limit the menu of choice, but sometimes to open that up depending on that person's needs. And you would use the choice board with the same symbols as you'd be using for their core vocabulary. Daily planners are often done, and I find them very functional for people. They learn a lot of language around those planners, and they could look as simple as something like this, or maybe as complex for somebody who's blind or deafblind. There's been actual objects that they could track their own day using. Conversation starters or memory books. They're great when, they really help socially connect individuals with one another. And what I like about those is that they can be used for people who read to one another, because you do write things on, but the objects themselves or the picture themselves talks to the friends, so they know at a glance that if you've got the front of an A&W fries packet, for instance, tucked in there, they know you've been to A&W because they recognize that. And it's a way for them to share with one another. We also support the use of voice output devices, and that can be challenging at times to get the device that's needed, but there is access to long-term loan for people who, for some people, and also Kaya supports some of the younger people to acquire devices when needed. So there's a couple of options there. Okay. And I just wanted to put this up. I hope these come out okay. Okay. We're talking about how people should have be multimodal in their communication, and this is Val, and she gave permission to use this. Val uses the Bliss book of many pages. She's got hundreds and hundreds of Bliss symbols that she communicates with. She can also spell and she can also sign. So as you can see, we're using that combination of communication, and it works really well. So I think that she's a perfect example of when things are going really, really well. And I'm just going to leave that up there for a few minutes. Okay. I just made some other overheads as well, just so that people might see. Yeah, it's sort of the right way. Okay. So, you know, a choice board, this particular one was actually made for somebody to eye gaze to what they wanted. But you can also just touch it. It's important to find the right access route for people to communicate. People think sometimes if you can't point, then you can't do it. But there's many other ways that we can do that, whether it's just a head turn or a little nod, or just be able to hit a switch to make things scan for them. So, you know, don't be put off by thinking this person that you're supporting has too much difficulty. You really want to explore it, even if you're not sure. This is a little copy of somebody's who used this on a daily basis. You'll notice on this one the words are really big, because we try to encourage any literacy that may be able to be developed. And we go about talking about the day. So this one starts with, and then just goes along. And for this individual, she could read as well, but she liked the picture. But this kept her on track, and she could self-direct her day and felt really good and competent because she was able to do that. And that, you know, it worked well for her in the daytime. Some people here in the room I know will be familiar with this style of planning. So this is for a person who would have no sight. So the box has a texture and it would have an object in it. Some people have a little vision, so you could put a picture in there if necessary. And so then they follow along in their day. Instead of just going by a little picture, they could feel the object and know that's what they were going to do, and then when they go back they'd feel the empty space, and then they would move on through the day. And that way it's a nice secure way for people who might not otherwise know what's going on because they can't hear or see, for them to get that information. Okay. This is a couple of examples, and it's terrible, the quality that came out, because I just copied it out of something that I use for examples. So, you know, when you go out to an event and you wanted to have something to share, look at all the things we throw away when we go out. You know, when you're in something, there's usually something that's disposable. So whether it's the sugar packet from the 7-Eleven that you've put in your coffee, or whatever it might be, those are the kinds of things that people can come back and show to their friends of what they've been doing. And it's really neat too for people who maybe live in a group home and they see their families, you know, every so many weeks or on the weekends, and then they have these mementos to share, so they can have a say in helping to talk about their lives. Because really that's what's very difficult for people, is to actually join in socially. We do it without even thinking, you know. We just have so much ability just to connect with people. And we need to find tools and strategies that will help individuals, and to remind them to use them also. But having the tools there kind of prompts us to remind people to use them. And all of this stuff is very simple. I mean, there are very complicated things in communication, but it doesn't all have to be complicated. It doesn't all have to take money. People will say, we don't have funds for this. Well, let's look at what we can put in place without a lot of funding. Okay. So some of the things that we can do are sign language. And even for people who might never be able to sign back, I think sign language is a very useful tool. It means that they can get things receptively, they can see something, they're connected to you visually. Sometimes that's very, very helpful. Amarin, some of you may have heard of Amarin. It's, I don't have many people using it. I have one woman who's used it in the past. And it's a gestural code that was developed between the American Indian trading nations. Long before anybody came to North America from Europe, they had a trading language, and it's a gestural code, and it's quite readable. It's really amazing. And a woman called Madge Skelly, her aunt had a stroke and lost her speech. And she found that as she was older, she just couldn't learn sign language. She just couldn't put all the bits together. So she resurrected this code because Madge Skelly was, I can't remember which nation she was from, but her family were from, I think it might have been Cherokee, but I can't remember. So she has put all of this code into a book, and it's a really helpful code, you know, for people who might find signing a little bit more difficult. And it's quite easy to read. So it's something else that can be used. Bliss symbols, people like Val, who you saw up there, has just pages and pages of bliss. And people say, oh, that's so hard, how did they learn it? Well, it's amazing what people can learn. And we ourselves don't really need to know it very well because the word is right on there. But bliss is an interesting communication system because it's the only true language that we present, apart from our own verbal and spelled communication. Bliss is a full language. You can say anything, and it's international. So, and they even have a bliss net, so that if you do your bliss stuff on this continent, you can have pen pals in Finland or wherever, you know, because they can read it at the other end. So it's just really marvelous. It was never developed for people with disability, but it has become used for people with disability. So it was a nice gift that Charles Bliss made to the world that he didn't expect was going to happen. He had hoped it would stop the people misunderstanding each other and wars happening in the world, because he was caught up in the atrocities of World War II. Okay, so picture communication symbols that's the thing that most people are familiar, and we can make those because I have the board maker program, and then you can make the pictures whatever size the individual needs. You can focus on big words, you can adjust everything, you can make pictures, unique symbols out of it as well. And so you would be seeing things like, you know, this kind of thing. Sometimes we have to step them so as people can target them. Or they just might be tiny, tiny little things. And some people can flip pages and remember what they've seen on the other page. Many of the people that I support cannot do that. And we'll lay it out so that it's people doing what, where, and when, so that they can make a little message. And that way they can say who they want to go with, who they want to go with, and maybe they would like to do that on Saturday, you know. So and that we build that up gradually, step by step. Okay. So the objects, I've already shown you some of those. And tactile color. Now, tactile color is a really interesting way to communicate. We have the Tactile Color Society in Victoria. They were originally started in England, and the woman who developed it, she acquired blindness herself through her diabetes, and she found out that if you don't keep the memory of color alive, you forget what color is like. You can't imagine it after so long. And I just, to even trying to imagine that it's very, very difficult. So, and it's such an important part of our remembering to be able to conjure up color. So she decided to develop these textures. There's 12 different textures, and each has a different color. So anybody who has any residual sight can see it, but also the distinctive touch of each one gives them information as well. These are slightly raised up, and so they can actually feel the outline. So if a person had been blind from birth, what we would put on here would be different from what somebody who had residual sight. So it's very personalized. But you can basically do with these, make pictures out of this material and use it in the same way as you would a picture or an object. So it's a kind of sandwich in between, and it's a great tool. And I was fortunate enough to be asked to be part of Tactile Color Augmented Communication research project a number of years ago, and was able to have a number of people that I worked with participate in that and benefit from it. So not huge numbers again, but there's always somebody that seemed to fall through the cracks, and that was one area that was really neat and recognized. So I was pleased to be able to find some new tools. Word boards and letter boards. Many people that we work with are not literate, but others are surprisingly so. And it just amazes me sometimes what people can learn. I can remember years ago when I first came into the field to do stuff, there was a young woman who actually used to come to QA years ago, and she was the first person that I ever saw using blocks of color, and she had pictures in hers. But she could make huge messages with dozens and dozens of pictures just by eye gaze. Just a totally amazing thing. And this is it's a two-step way to select a letter. Time-consuming, but so also is behaviors that that people resort to when they can't communicate. So all of this stuff takes a lot of time, but it's well worth the effort that's put out. It's a really respectful thing to do for people, and sometimes we find even when people don't use their stuff as much as we would like at the beginning, it takes time. We sometimes find that people's behavior actually lessen because they know that you're trying to hear what they have to say. So it's a real way of reaching out to other people, and the people we support recognize that. This, I took a picture of that board that's there. Which way does it go? This way. This is really helpful for people who may have difficulty targeting because of physical limitations. So the whole alphabet's on there, but there's a lot of word chunks, so you don't have to spell every single letter in a word, and a lot of the common words are in there. So quickly they can put on their word endings or all those little words that you don't have to spell. It reduces the points. Depends what board you have. This is it's called Write 100, and there's also a Write 200 and a 400. But it does reduce the number of physical movements that people have to do to express themselves. Okay. Any questions before I move on? Yes?
How far is the geographical area?
That's a good question. Millbay South of the island and the Gulf Islands is our catchment area. It's a regional area that CLB is within that CLB area. So yeah, but Millbay South. Yeah. We used to do Duncan, but they changed the boundary lines, and so they're. I think Nanaimo serves Duncan now. But I hear they don't have an augmented communication team right now. So, what to do when you meet your non-speaking person? Now, this all seems like, yeah, of course we would do that. But it's surprising how often people don't. They talk over people, around people, behind people, and don't include them. So it's really important, even your positioning when you meet people too, so that you're all sort of facing. Just like you wouldn't, if any of your friends came, you wouldn't go just stand behind them and talking or anything like that. You know, you really would be sort of, it's near face to face or at least side to side, so that you could get contact with them. So speak to them. Amazing how many people just ignore people to start with. And include them in everything. Even if they don't have a way to communicate that you know, you can always say things like, have you heard about that? Or, I heard this joke, did you enjoy that joke? Whatever it is you're sharing, sort of draw people in, because you can tell by people's facial expression if they're connecting and getting it. Not everything has to be a system. We can read people sometimes too. Ask how they communicate, and that's very important, because quite often people will have little instructions about how they communicate. Other times it's packed away maybe in a backpack on the back of a wheelchair, so you need to ask. Some people carry their own in their pocket. Other people will have caregivers carrying it for them, but you need to ask, do you have a communication system? How do you communicate? And ask how they indicate yes and no. So, because even if you just got a yes and no when you first meet somebody, that's a very helpful tool. You can include people quite a lot with that. It's not enough to live your life, but it's a great way to start. If you were a worker in a new situation, you could ask if they have any tools and strategies already in place, because sometimes that's not self-evident, Ask if they've been assessed, and if they have, then read those recommendations that are in place. Everybody should be supporting the communication system when it's in place to the best of their ability. And if the person has not received the support, then you can ask if that can happen for them. And of course, there's always a line of command if you're in a group setting. But just remember, not all managers know that the service is free. So that is something that you can share and say, well, you know that the service is free, and you'd be willing to help support and get things in place. So sometimes it just needs a willing person on site for it to go ahead, because it does take at least one committed person to get augmented communication up and going, because it's quite a big effort. Now, some of your things, I'm just going to refer to the things that are in your handouts. You don't need to look at them, but I'm going to review, because you have these handouts. I'm just going to put this off for a moment. When we're looking at what vocabulary might be necessary for people to communicate, we want to look at things like urgent needs first. So right at the beginning of a communication display, you would have things that people need to say quickly. They don't have to flip pages. This woman needs to say when she has low blood sugar, she's feeling dizzy, that kind of a thing. To be able to quickly say something on here, things that for some people it's like they just need to ask all the time, where's this and where's that? They don't feel safe unless they know exactly where things are. So they need the things right there, not having to flip pages to find it. So it could be for health or emotional support for people. Many of the people that I see have huge behavioral components to the disability because they just don't have a way to feel comfortable and to know that they're safe. And so having a communication system can really help with that. So for some of the individuals, there's a lot of things like, I want to be with my safe person, I need to be in a quiet place, let's get out of here, this is too much for me, those kinds of things. So whatever that person needs should be really right there for them. They would also need a section for their people. They need to be able to identify the people that are with them. And that would usually include either a photograph in the display or a sign for that individual. And if you're using an object system, you would have an object that would represent a person. So it's important for staff to be identified, not just for the individual using it, but for yourselves as well. That's a way that they can ask, say something nice about you or whatever, I'd like to walk with whoever, Okay, and in that area, we should include people that they work with and people who live in their home, their friends, families, however big that circle is, you need to get that. For some people, they have a huge amount of people in their life. So you would have some key people there, and then you would say, I need my photo album, a little symbol, so that they could access the other pictures. You want to have things, when you're selecting vocabulary, things that the people are going to be doing. There's great stock with all the people that we support in doing things. We try to get them interesting lives, so we want to have all of those action activities that they do. But we also want to include things like and goal and love, and to include some of those things. Hate. I used to have one woman who said she had to have on there hate broccoli, because she wanted every new staff to know that no way that was going on her plate, so really it has to empower people. And when it's on there, then she doesn't get the broccoli, You want to have activities of the routine chores, the things that they do every day, and I'll look at those as responsibilities, because we all have those. You have choice in life, but you also have responsibilities. So very important that people are made to see that those routine things that they do are part of the responsibility to themselves or to others. So they need to take their meds, they need to eat, they need to have a bath, and that's seen as being responsible. Hobbies and interests, so we need to include those, and usually people think about those more interesting things first. And social activities for the recreation. Places in the community, at home and at work, so people, I think, often lead really interesting lives. Many of them more interesting than mine. So it's good to just have as many things in there. You can use photographs, and now we can put photographs into the boards. We have a mix of photographs and pictures. Some people have all photos, so it just depends what speaks to the individual. And when we're looking at the time section, you might just want to stick to the days of the week. A lot of people just have that, but other people need their months and all the holidays in there, and night and day and later and soon. This particular one, the person was very, very fond of every holiday that came up. And we actually had a little template that only opened up the one that was coming up, because he just loved his holidays so much. That way he could focus on the one that was coming up. It was a helpful tool for his caregivers. Other things we need to think about are like food. Emotions and feelings. Sometimes we forget about that category. We think we know how people are feeling. And sometimes what looks like anger might be frustration or upset. So it's really good to try and teach those emotions when we can. We usually just stick with 4 basics, but others might have more complex things. Body parts, very important to people should be able to identify their body parts so that they can keep themselves safe, but also to say if they're feeling ill. Sexuality, some of the people that we support certainly need a private section. They may have relationships in place, and so you would put their sexuality needs within a section that was only available to those people that gave permission to use it with them. Other things like weather and colours and numbers, and have a letterboard included for some people. Even for people who are not real spellers, but they know what a word starts with, sometimes they can point to the letter and then the word kind of comes out better for them. They can make a better word approximation. So sometimes we're using literacy skills when people aren't very literate at all, but it all augments the communication that they're trying to share with us. So when you're looking at there's a spelling mistake in there. Okay, sorry. Vocabulary is spelled wrong. When you're selecting that, you need to look at things that are words that are used frequently, because they're more likely to be learned. Like come and go and eat and drink. You want all of those everyday things in there, and that's often where we start. So people can say, "Come with me." You go, "I want to go now. I want to eat. I want to drink," and select words that are appropriate to your program settings. So, people should have vocabulary that spans all of their life, but you need to ensure that you have the vocabulary for your setting. So if you have some unique programs within your organization or your program, then we need to get that stuff in there. You need to choose words that encourage socially appropriate interactions, like hi and bye and thank you. Those social politeness markers too are very important for people. They actually connect people. I used to just assume if people were acting politely, they were being polite, and I never used to bother too much with these social please and thank yous, but we know that interaction with people goes up as much as 60% if they use their politeness markers, and that's what this is all about. So You're trying to get people connected to others. So it's very important. And vocabulary should serve a variety of communication functions, like for attention, for information, to request an object, to affirm or deny something, and for greetings. And when you're selecting vocabulary, it's so important that this is not about what you want to tell them, it's what they need to tell you. So you have to sort of be in their shoes and think, what is it they would need to tell me? You know, if I was living their life, what would it need to empower? And that, you know, because sometimes people will say to me, yeah, I need to know recycle and laundry, and you know, things that you know that you're telling them to do. It can be the other way around, but it's very important that it's their needs to express themselves, because that's where we're really going, is for them to be able to express themselves. And we'll build receptive skills through these ongoing daily tasks as we do them. And you'll find that people can hear you better when you do communicate with them, when they have more opportunity to voice what they would like. They become better listeners as well, because that's what communication is. We're listening to them, and we're modeling that, so therefore they listen to us a little bit better. And as I say, sometimes behaviors can be reduced a bit. Sometimes behaviors go up a little bit to start with, and that really scares people, because somebody suddenly feels empowered for the first time, and they make the choice over and over again. And so you really have to try and honor that, and then it just lessens off, because they're just trying to see if the power is going to work all the time, you know, or is this just for short term, you know, so they better make the best of it. So you know, you can reassure people, yeah, I'm always going to listen. So, so sometimes you'll get a little escalation of, you know, I want this, want this, want this. So, but sometimes there's wonderful examples of how people really hear. And we can't always do what the person asks for right in the moment. If you can, fabulous. But given today's staffing, sometimes that's not possible. But when you have the planner in place, and you can say, hey, yeah, let's get that picture up there. We're doing that 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll do that with you, whatever it is. So, you know, you can make that forward plan. It's in concrete plan. It's physically there for them. And they then see that as a contract that you're not going to forget. So they can let go of it and relax a bit more. So it can be very helpful. It actually makes your job a lot easier in the long run. You know, when you give power away to other people, life becomes easier. And, you know, sometimes people don't realize that to give it away actually isn't you losing control, you're actually gaining control. Because the more a person's in control of themselves, and that's what it should be. We don't want to be managers of people. We want people to have lives that we're proud of. And, you know, the people we support have just only one life, go around at it, the same as ourselves, and this is me on my soapbox, you know, and I always think that, you know, if I had their life, you know, I think I've lived this long, and I think, oh, there's all this stuff I'm not getting to do, I have to do this, I have to do that. The people we support only get one turn at it as well, and so we need to give them the best we can give them, and allow them to participate as much as possible. And I often think that people we support are very patient with us, you know, because like they just put up with a lot that I couldn't. I probably have no hair if I couldn't talk, you know, because I'd probably pull it all out. In this handout, I'll briefly go through it. I'm not going to read every word on this because I put that in for you as a reminder to yourself or something to think about. Augmented communication isn't rocket science, but you really do want to have a good assessment done when you're supporting somebody. Don't just keep trying things willy-nilly and say, no, I've tried that, but it doesn't work. Where you're placing it, the vision needs to be checked out. Is it in the right position for them to target? Can they point better with something other than their finger? You know, there's many, many things to look at. But the conversation starter kinds of things where people can share, everybody could go today and with anybody they're working with and just do that kind of stuff. Just start to try and encourage social connections. But sometimes people give up on augmented communication because they've tried some things on their own because they have some idea about what they want to do. And sometimes it's just not quite the right thing. You may be on the right track, but not quite the right picture size or presented in the right way. So it's good to get the assessment done. You don't have to do this on your own because that's my job, to support you to be able to get the skills you need to do it. It's not my job to do it, because it's nice to visit and all the rest, but I'm only there once in a while, so you will be the people who will be doing the service. So we talked about multimodal approaches. We're not replacing anything. We're just building on all the communication tools that people already have. And some people are just amazing how communicative they are, even when, because they just had to develop their own systems. I mean, they're astonishingly inventive because they found things that work and they stick to it. It's nice when it's appropriate, but it's not always. Okay. And you want to demonstrate that their tools is real communication. It's not some kind of game or activity. So use the tools with them. Point out things that you're saying as you talk. Yeah, I made this last night. I'm going to make cookies tonight. And so using their tools, and especially if you're with a group of people, then you can be using and demonstrating and signing and pointing and all those things. It's very important to validate the use of those tools. If they see you using it, they're more likely to think it's okay for them to use it, because they want to be so much like everybody else. And so we have to try and bridge those gaps to try and make that work. I put in there, remember that communication is not a set activity. It's not something you do when Dorothy comes over. Although I have go in some places, and when they see me coming in, the client will just go and get the board. Well, I don't know where it is, which is always really good. I think there's a big change in the focus of communication. When I first started doing this job, it was very much seen that it was my job to do communication, where it's really not. It's everybody's job to do communication, because people are living lives and you're part of their life and you have to help support that. I'm just sort of trying to point in the right direction about the way you should go to do that and to do it in a more successful way. Situational teaching, those windows of opportunity that come up all the time when we're with people, those are the most valuable things of all. So really watching for ways you can use the things that are in place and finding those little opportunities to do that. It can be very empowering for yourself as well as for the person using the system. And in here under 3, I've put present only choices you're prepared to honor. Sometimes people will ask, what would you like, what would you like? Like you can have anything, but you can't have anything. And so you can say, tonight we could do this, this or this. Which would you prefer? But it's not just a big box that you can open up and have anything you want anytime, because that is not what life is about. We don't have that. So people get worried about that, actually, about giving people choice, because they'll think they can have anything they want anytime they want. Well, no, you present the options that you have. And if they're asking for something else, so I really hear that, but let's plan for when that could happen. Because we can't all go to Disneyland and we can't all go to Hawaii. But we can make a plan to do that. We can make a very long-term plan to do that. So it's about recognizing and respecting that people have things to tell you and supporting them about that appropriate time. So people can have choices, but they need to have all the information. They need to have informed choices. And that's part of what we do as well, giving them the rationale for, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. We'll need to think that would be a long, long time from now, but it sounds like a great idea. And if you really want to do that, I'll support you to do that. So, we know that there are people who do all kinds of things like bake sales and all kinds of things so they can get their trip to Disneyland every couple of years. So there are ways to do things. Even when we think, that's never going to be possible, we think, how could it be possible? And then try and make those baby steps towards making people's life what they would like. And in communication, we want to think of that turn-taking, because that's what communication is, back and forth. So that's something you can all be working on. Even when you don't have a system, you can be sort of pulling people into that, encouraging them to respond and to ask questions. Anything that a person has that has been developed should be kept visually around them. Some people just can't remember about it if it's not there to be seen. And so we need to encourage people to use it by saying things like, hey, we like to talk to me, come and tell me something, I'd love to hear what you've been doing. So, so you getting the tools and saying, come in, let's look at your memory book and let's see what you've been remembering you think's really interesting or whatever. And then that's a way for you to say, I remember when we went there too. So that's what people do, and it connects you. So as I said, not rocket science, but actually living lives with people. Okay, so keeping it. And one of the things that can be really challenging is when you do a group activity and you've got several people using different communication tools. But I can help you with some of that too. If you know ahead of time that you're going to have a regular group for things, whether it's for baking or whatever it is, then they can have the symbols that they would need within that activity. Or you could be taking photographs of each of the steps or each of the ingredients for a recipe or whatever. So there's lots of ways to do it. It just takes a bit of prep time. But often when you have it, then you can use them again. There's some things you can keep using. And I've described what a conversation starter book is in there, just so that you can remember how to do that. Okay. And I've put in there to acquire basic signing skills. And that's one of the things that I do on a regular basis is I do a community level 1 and level 2 signing where people can come. They can come with the individual who needs to sign, and a staff person can come with them. And usually there is a cost for that, but the staff person and the client come for the same price, so that it's not too costly, and it's much less expensive than going to another community signing course. I also do on-site signing for people within their day programs or in their homes, and that can be a lot of fun because once we get the basics done, then we can build on what is important within their group. Yeah? We're doing signed English, and that's a good question. The reason we're doing that is that the people we're supporting are not in the deaf community, and so we're signing what we're saying, so that the word we're saying and the sign we're signing is the same, because we want to keep that as clear as possible and as easily learned as possible. American Sign Language is the language of the deaf community, and it's very fast, and the word order is different, so it's certainly their language and works really well for them. But when we're supporting people in the hearing community, and often the people we're working with, there are some people who are deaf, but a lot of people are signing because they can't talk, not because they can't hear. And so we need that to match the sign. Okay. There's some myths here. People always get really worried about that if they do this kind of thing, they'll get lazy and they won't talk. Well, I don't think anybody's lazy. Talking is the easiest thing to do if you can do it. And we do know that having less reliance on having to try and get the word out, if that's your only way, you're more relaxed if you have another way, and sometimes speech comes out better. For some people, their speech improves. It does not take speech away. And so then they'll say some people are lazy, they don't want to use their board. But I think that's more about the structures we have around people. They've not got the support they need to know how to use it, and we're not encouraged. They're not just going to have the board and then come walking up to you and say they want to say something. We have to step by step build it. It's a long process. It's a long process, but it's very worth it. Some people say, they're too low functioning. They can't talk, so they can't think, can't feel. And I've actually had people say that to me, not in the last 5 or 6 years, thank goodness, but I have had it said to me that this person can't feel because they're too low functioning, and that if you can't talk, you can't think. That used to be in old literature out there, that we think in words, so if you can't speak, you can't think, But if you lose your voice tomorrow, you're still going to be able to think. Okay. Well, I know I do. So there's a lot of old myths out there. It's like so many things, but there's still underlying things. There's beliefs out there that are really hard to change. But I think that the world the way it is, that people are much more open to that everybody can benefit from communication. Technology will solve the problem. Well, it doesn't really. Technology is wonderful to have, and it can be, some people can have that. But anybody who has technology also has to have a non-technical system. Nobody's going to give you a technical system unless you have an intact non-technical system first, because it's easier to do non-tech than high-tech. Doesn't sound like it would be, but it actually is. So there's a place for all of this, and it's about having many layers, as I say, of communication tools and strategies. Number 4, this was put on here because it's actually said, we have no communication problems. He understands everything I say. Well, yeah, we know people understand everything we say, but they can't say it back. And that's what communication is. It's two ways. It's not just about them getting. People do understand so much. I mean, way above what we sometimes figure they should be able to understand. I think most people are a lot more astute than we think that they are. And just some reminders. The only prerequisite is that an individual requires for communication is breathing, and that was Pat Miranda. She said that at the ISAC conference in '92, and she's such a powerful woman. I've really studied a lot of her work. She's written many things. All behavior is communication. I think we know that, but it is true, and behavior isn't a thing you should be trying to eliminate without putting something else in its place. You can't just say stop doing that because it's maybe the only way they have to tell you that something's wrong. Communication is defined as an act of transmitting and an exchange of information or opinions. And it's really important, that word opinions. We don't often ask people we support for their opinion, but it's very, very important. I remember one of the first times I asked somebody for their opinion, and I told this joke that I thought was marvelous. And this person was able to spell a little bit, and I was thinking it was a great joke, and she spelled dumb. I said, no, okay. Not the same sense of humor as me at all. And I was thinking I had told such a great joke. But communication is not defined as repeatedly testing people on information that you already know, and it's not defined as talking. Sometimes we find people, they've all had a meal together, they've all had spaghetti or whatever, and then after supper they'll say to the person with their book, what did you have for supper? Well, you know, if you wouldn't do it with your friend, you're not going to do it with people you support. Think of normal models. It's okay to open it and say, gee, I really loved that spaghetti tonight. When will we make it again? You know, something like that. Make it conversation. Don't test people on, because they feel so insulted that some people won't even answer you, and then you think, oh, they're not very bright at all. Well, they're just so insulted, they're not going to. I mean, you sat at the same table eating the same meal, you know. So, but people do things like that because it's such a struggle to know how to interact. So the more you can get some suggestions on how to do that with people, it can just make you feel less stressed about that interaction. Because most people really want to do this, it's just that you get a bit fearful, especially when it's a new person or whatever. I know every time I see a new person, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I've got anything that I can do for them. Of course, there always is something. I have to listen to my own words. There is always something we can do. And communication is multimodal. And we all communicate to express our needs and wants, and because we're social beings. Needs and wants, the needs get met because we have to, with a duty of care. It all happens anyway. It's nice for people to get what they would like, but really it's about being with each other. And augmentative communication takes time, and so does managing uncontrolled, challenging behaviors that have evolved from poor attention to communication. So, thank you. If there's any last questions, or I'll be around for most of the day anyway. If anybody has questions, I'd be happy to do that. There's some cards here, and some little leaflets from our community support team here as well. And thank you. Yes?
Is there a computer website for the little icons, like the pictures, or do we have to go through you?
The board maker pictures that we have here are all on a special program, and it's somewhat costly. Now, some of the organizations in town have purchased their own VACL or VCL. No, I can't get it right. Okay, their new name. They have one, and Garth Homer does too. But it's several $100s, and I'm happy to run those off. If we're making a whole system, there is a cost to cover making all the supplies, but it's only a cost recovery. So people don't have to be putting out a lot of money to get what they need. And I'm happy to do that once I know who the person is. So, okay. Any other questions? Well, I think you've been very attentive for first thing in the morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. Hi, Alana.
I'm pleased to introduce two women that I've worked with for a long time and that I have an incredible amount of respect for, who probably know more people with developmental disabilities in this community than anybody in this room. Sheila Ross graduated in 1992 with a master's in counseling and psychology. Sheila has been in private practice in the past. She's worked with planned lifetime networks in the past. She's worked frontline in a group home. She's worked as a manager in a group home. And since 1994, she has worked with the community support team and has provided counseling support to